For the next 14 days, I'm going to be training with the greatest shooter in the history of basketball, Stephen Curry. He's responsible for single-handedly changing the way modern basketball is played by popularizing the three-point shot and making it a fundamental part of every team's offensive strategy. He literally cannot miss from anywhere on the court. And then there's me, who literally can't make a shot from anywhere on the court. So for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be following his masterclass where he breaks down how he shoots step by step, and we'll see if it's enough to take me from a bust to a bang!
Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
First things first, I needed to get a baseline of my current shooting skills that I could compare again at the end of the challenge. Curry is known to start every practice with 5 shots in 5 different spots inside the key and 5 shots around the arc, making usually 48 out of 50 of these shots to average approximately 98%. So I was curious to see how far from that I was.
I got 1 3-pointer. And I was like trying because I didn't want it to be like so bad that people would think I was faking it. But I only need 1 3-pointer. What the heck, man? We got one. We got one. Let's see how it keeps going. It's all up from here, right?
Simmons hits for 3.
So for the first week, I decided to work on my mechanics, which Curry's masterclass broke down into 5 main areas: shooting from the ground up, leading with your lower body, hand positioning, knowing where to aim, and release. The plan was to work on these for at least 1 hour each day, through different drills provided within the masterclass. I would then end each of these sessions with 100 made shots from multiple areas around the hoop, and keep track of how many total shots it took me to get 5 perfect makes at each spot. While I struggle to make these 100 shots, it might be a good time to explain why exactly I'm doing this, and more importantly, why now?
And the truth is, it's all for this guy. This is me years ago. Growing up, I was pretty tall for my age, which always led people to assume that I was good at basketball. But the thing was, I also struggled a lot with my weight. Whether it was being too skinny or too overweight, I was never really naturally athletic or talented at any sport. And although I thought basketball was extremely fun, I'd make up excuses every week to avoid practice because I didn't want to fail in front of anyone or let down a team. Ironically, the fear of being bad at something led me to never actually getting better at it. And as you've seen, to this day, I'm still pretty terrible at basketball, and I refuse to play in front or against anyone. But recently I'm starting to come to the realization that real failure isn't not being naturally talented at something, but rather in not trying at all. Which is also why, right before starting this masterclass, I decided to challenge the best basketball player I know to a 1v1 in exactly 2 weeks. But before jumping into details, I'll get back to the game plan. Also, making these videos is another thing I'm not naturally talented at, but I'm still trying. So if you're enjoying it so far, feel free to drop a like, subscribe, or just leave a friendly comment. So let's get back to the game.
As I continued to practice and look back at footage of my shots, I quickly realized that almost all of my natural mechanics were the exact opposite of what I should be doing. Things like pointing my toes in the wrong direction or pushing the ball while I was throwing. And although the fixes sounded simple, it was also hard to remember every single step each time I shot without forgetting to aim. As I progressed through each practice, I noticed that certain things became more natural. Although they weren't perfect, the more I practiced, the less robotic and in my head I felt. Slowly, I could feel my shooting becoming a bit better. But as my shooting improved, something dawned on me. A lot of these shooting drills were uncontested open shots, which definitely wouldn't translate into my 1v1. If I wanted to have a shot at winning, I had to practice more than just shooting drills. And although Steph was extremely helpful, I think I needed a bit more help.
I'm actually heading to the first session with an actual coach. It's like a quick 30-minute session, but I wanted to hop on here because it's weird that it's something like so simple, but I found myself like feeling like pretty anxious about it this morning. It's funny because I felt this before. It's been a while. I remember feeling this exact way when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, and I tried some sports, but then I'd feel like this before weekly practices. I pretty much just felt like everyone told me, and what I ended up telling myself was that I was just lazy. But by feeling that way this morning with something that I'm choosing to do and that I know I want to do and that I enjoy, I'm realizing that it's a lot less about me being lazy even back then, maybe a little bit more about anxiety and performing in front of others, and maybe a little bit of perfectionism in there as well. So yeah, I won't go too deep, but I just thought it was like interesting to see that. Like I'd never really like looked back at that. And yeah, I wonder if I would have stuck to more practices if I knew I wasn't just lazy and there was ways to deal with that. So yeah, so I'll finish this coffee and we'll head out. Check out this nice sunset. I don't know if you guys can see that.
This is Coach Jeremy. And he's going to have me go through some basic drills to measure my current basketball proficiency, which includes shooting, dribbling, and layups. Honestly, in just 30 minutes, I got so much good feedback regarding things I didn't even know I was doing wrong. Like this weird thing I do with my knee when shooting, or not going low enough when I dribble. I honestly felt like the insights he shared would have easily taken me months to figure out. And honestly, his assessment went a lot better than I anticipated.
Great training session today. Like we said, we got to tack on some dribbling. But overall, I see a lot of potential and look forward to doing more work. Thank you for the opportunity.
But before we left, he gave me one last suggestion.
I mean, if you played, though, to be, I don't know, park or wherever you wanted to play, you could be good, though.
Now, this may not sound like a big deal, but for me, it was absolutely terrifying. And all the thoughts I had as a teenager came flooding back. I'm here, but definitely thinking about turning back. We got some guys playing in the background there, and yeah, I don't know. Feels weird. But then I remembered this guy, and if I made the same decisions I made back in high school, I'd probably be sitting at home in a couple of years regretting never trying again. So I walked up and asked the group if they wanted to play a couple games.
Man, if I shoot around a bit, awesome, appreciate it, man.
Looking back at the footage, it was super helpful to see what lessons actually translated into a real game and which ones didn't. But more than all of that, the biggest thing I noticed was the smile I had on my face almost the entire time. It was fun again, and a lot of the fears I had going in actually never happened and were all in my head. For the final stretch, I was doing a combination of the shooting drills from the masterclass, dribbling drills that Coach Jeremy was nice enough to send over, and also playing some pickup games every other day. So before the big game, it was time to test my shooting again so I could compare to day one, where if you don't remember, I shot a terrible 18%, making only 9 out of 50 total shots. Like before, I started off with 25 shots inside the key, and I was able to start off really well. But that didn't last long. And as I got further from the hoop, I felt like I started overthinking my shot a bit and missed quite a few. It was then time to move over to the three-point line, where I was hoping to make at least 40% of my shots. I had shot terribly last time, but after 2 weeks of practice, I was confident I could improve. And to my surprise, I was able to beat it on the first spot. And even the ones I was missing were a lot more accurate than beforehand. As I moved to each spot, I was able to hit a three-pointer from every position. Well, almost every position. It wasn't the lights out shooting that I had hoped for, but honestly, it was an improvement I could be proud of when looking back. Overall, I made 20 out of 50 shots for 40%.
That's progress. I'm happy. I can see the improvement, and it's not too shabby.
Finally, it was game day. After 2 weeks of training like an NBA legend, I was ready to see if it would all pay off. To start things off, we needed to shoot a three to decide who would get the ball first. And things were off to a good start. I was honestly pretty nervous to get things started, and resorted to chucking up panic shots in order to avoid having the ball in my hand too long. Luis, on the other hand, was a lot calmer, and was able to make a couple quick shots look easy. The difference in experience was painfully obvious, and I was worried this might be a complete wipe. But one of the great things about running back and forth and playing is that it also sometimes forces you out of your own head. I knew I had put in the time to practice, but I did my best to turn off my brain and just trust myself. Now, they weren't all perfect, and Luis might have left a foul call slide here and there, but I could feel things becoming a lot more consistent compared to when I'd first started. As we went on, I feel Luis starting to take me a bit more seriously. For a second, I thought I might actually have a shot at winning this. And then this happened. It might not look like much, but I literally almost passed out when I saw how busted my lip was. But after a 15-minute break and getting cleared by Luis's girlfriend, we started back right where we left off. I immediately noticed that Luis had decided to shoot more away from the basket, probably to avoid any future hospital trips. Wasn't that much better for me anyways. The truth was that coming back into the game, I felt out of it. As Luis drained shot after shot, I felt like I had lost the momentum I had gained earlier. But like before, I decided to forget about the score a bit and just have fun. And after a couple of back and forth shots between us, somehow I was only down 1 point.
And there I was, wide open with a chance to win the game with a three-pointer. After hundreds of shots and hours of practice, this was my chance. So I pulled up and took my shot. And I completely missed. Luis then went on to make the next shot and beat me. But even after that, as I was standing there with a loss and a busted lip, I realized it was never about winning a game of basketball or how many shots I made. It was about allowing myself to get out of my head and finally try. And just by stepping on the court, I already felt like a winner.